Get a good spot. Up front's okay. We don't bite. So my name is John Francis. I serve on the board of directors at Sport Clips. I've been there for 12 years. I like to say I'm a reluctant consultant to the franchise industry, and I'm a recovering franchisor, trying to stop the habit, but can't seem to quit. I have the honor of moderating the panel today, and my style is pretty informal. People who know me, I think, appreciate that. And what we're going to do is introduce ourselves briefly, and then we've got a few comments to make about onboarding franchisees in this post-COVID era. And Kim, one of our panelists today, also has some real practical training advice and tactics to share. That's kind of the nature of their business. So we're going to give her a little extra time to do that. And then after about 30 minutes, we're going to break into round tables. So each of the four of us are going to take one of these tables up front. And then there's a few other roundtable facilitators that'll come in. We'll probably figure out how to consolidate so we actually have full tables. And then we'll spend, I think, about an hour doing the roundtable. So that'll be fun. Ready with that? Everyone okay with that? All right. So I think I introduced myself already. I'm John Francis. My nickname is Johnny Franchise, which is kind of silly, but it sticks. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, so I really was little Johnny growing up. And if you add an H in the middle of my last name and an E at the end, it turns Francis into franchise. So I used to say you can't spell franchise without Francis. So I'm Johnny Franchise. With that, I'll ask my panelists to introduce themselves. Betsy, you want to go first?
Sure. Hello, I'm Betsy Hamm, and I'm the CEO of Duck Donuts. And Duck Donuts has 105 locations, primarily on the East Coast, but across the U.S. And we are a made-to-order donut concept. So when you walk in, you tell us what kind of donut you want, and then you get to watch it be baked and topped right in front of you.
That's great. Now, Betsy, how long have you been with the brand?
I've been with Duck Donuts for 5 years, and I have been the CEO for 6 months. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations. It's wonderful, isn't it? All right. Rohit, you're next.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rohit Chande. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Authority Brands. Rob introduced Authority Brands this morning, so I don't think I need to reintroduce the company. But just in a quick overview, we are in home franchise services. We have 10 residential services brands, and we are sponsored by Apex, and it's been a fun journey so far. I've been with the company for 2 years now.
Great. Kim?
I'm Kim Hanson, and I am with LearningRX, and we do brain training. So we have brain training centers. So most people are like, what's brain training? Well, most people don't know this, but there's 2 parts to SMART. There's what you know, and then there's how you process information. And most academics, most schools, most tutoring programs are all on the what you know side. We're on the how you process information side. And if you're sitting at a table where there's like these little worksheets, I have given you a brain training procedure that you can take with you and try in the bar tonight.
Nice. Nice. And Kim, can you share more about your brand? How many units, how long it's been around, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so we have about 70 centers here in the U.S., and then we're also in 46 countries. So that's another 90, I don't know, 4, 93, 95, I don't know.
And you've been there for how long?
And I have been with our brand for 17 years. I've been the CEO for almost four of those years. I'm a franchise kid.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Great. Well, thank you all for that. So the topic of the panel today is set them up for success, changes in franchisee onboarding process post-COVID. So COVID changed a lot of things, almost everything for a lot of brands. And so what I'll start, and I'll just share a little bit about some of the brands I work with, a number of different brands. The biggest brand is Sport Clips. That's who I'm representing today. They have quite a bit of training. You know, when you're a franchisee in that system, their goal is to get you open and staffed, right? Stylists, hairdressers is the secret to that model, obviously. And so recruiting has become a real challenge. I mean, you can't just hire anybody to cut hair. They got to have a license and the training and everything that goes on. So in that brand, they've had a pretty good run of opening stores, but it's mostly existing franchisees. They don't have a lot of new people coming to the brand. They have a lot of existing owners expanding. So that kind of simplifies their training. They use regional coaches. They use area developers. And varies by market depending on who's responsible for those areas. A lot of their training has gone online, but a lot of the technical training still has to be done in person. So really, COVID hasn't really changed a lot of their onboarding process. I guess that's just the nature of maybe being that big and having that kind of infrastructure already established. Smaller brands that I've worked with, things I've seen that have changed post-COVID is I see brands using existing franchisee locations as training centers, more on a localized basis, so people don't have to travel so far for training. And they set up these training centers with some kind of a certified program, so the franchisees have some incentive, some comp for letting those new trainees come through those stores or through those units when it's a retail store, or shadowing, almost like an apprentice kind of program. So I'm seeing more and more of that post-COVID because people don't want to travel or be that far away. They want to stay close to home. So those are a couple examples of things I've seen. Betsy, you want to share what you've seen in your brand?
Sure. Of course, donuts are essential, so we were always open, even during the worst part of COVID. And just like everybody else, our training had to change. And of course, we were doing virtual training, we were doing discovery days online. We actually even opened in Saudi Arabia about 2 months ago and just couldn't get a team there with visas. And the restrictions, so literally held a virtual training with our team in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, doing it for Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So a lot of that, I think a lot of people are seeing, but the two things I wanted to mention that we still continue to be focused on, and I don't think it needs to go away, is the importance of community and culture as we're onboarding our franchisees. So we think it's always very important for our franchisees to be involved in their local community, giving back however that looks for them. And we really saw that even get more important during COVID. So our franchisees were out sprinkling happiness, dropping off donuts to essential workers, frontline employees, and then that kind of became a marketing campaign of telling people to sprinkle happiness, drop off donuts to your neighbors. So while community was always important, it's even become more important, and we have these very tangible examples to share with especially new franchisees of, you have to build those relationships within your community, and being part of that when things are really bad, I think certainly resonates with the community as things get back to normal. So giving those examples, talking about it, having them talk to other franchisees has been really huge. And then the other piece is about culture. You sort of mentioned this, but of course everyone's battling labor shortages, and how do you get employees and how do you retain them? And the reality is, at Duck Donuts, we're not going to be able to pay someone $18 an hour to make donuts like some of the other fast food restaurants are. So I think it really comes down to the culture within the store. So we have the Duck Donuts culture, the Duck Donuts brand, and that's great, but then it's really on each franchisee, who is for the most part locally owned and operated, to be able to create this culture where people actually want to work with them. So giving them tips and tricks of how to create that, and how to have their franchisees be advocates to get their friends to work there has been really huge. And again, those two things, community and culture, I think have always been important, but now have been even more important, and I think that will be something that will go away here in the future. We'll continue to focus on that with existing franchisees, but especially the new ones as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. Rohit, you want to share some things from your brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, given that we have 10 different brands, some of our brands are very mature, some of our brands are emerging. There are some common themes here. As Rob talked about it this morning, we have made significant investments in technology just as a platform company. And so when COVID hit, that really allowed us to pretty quickly pivot to technology-based learning. That said, you can't learn to clean a pool by just looking at it virtually, right? So there are certain things that we had to do in person, and we like to have fun with it. And Stuart, who's the COO for ASP, or America Swimming Pool, is sitting there, and he can talk about these things. We like to have fun. We call those pool schools, or for one of our emerging brands, Duty Calls, we call that poop school, right? So it's just a way to have some fun with these things. There are certain things, for example, for our Clockwork brands or these other trades brands, you have to go through 120 different steps before you're ready for the training week. We have leveraged technology where franchisees can see the progress that they are making. They have weekly calls with the franchise business consultant assigned to them, so they can keep track of the progress that they are making. And we are also able to gauge how long before they are ready for the training week, right? So when COVID hit, we went to a fully virtual boot camp. As you can imagine, the biggest challenge with a all virtual thing is the engagement of the franchisees and the retention of the training that we are providing to them. So really, depending on the brand, we have made some changes there. For HomeWatch caregivers, my wife and I actually own a franchise of HomeWatch caregivers, and we went through that training during COVID. And we were the first batch of franchisees getting trained all virtually. And I have to say this, after a week of Zoom meetings, we had a fatigue, right? We just didn't want to sit in front of our computers for that long. And it was a 2-week-long training. So the learnings coming out of this is we have started to figure out what exactly can be done virtually, how to pace that information that we are sharing with the franchise owners. So the 2-week HomeWatch Caregivers franchise training now has become a 3-week-long training, and now we are pacing the franchisees much better. Some of these changes are not going to go away, right? So instead of, prior to COVID, it used to be 1-week-long intensive training in Denver. That became a 3-week-long virtual training, and now we are going towards a model where the franchisees will get 2.5 weeks of virtual training and then 2 days of intensive in-person training, because we believe that one of the biggest things that we need to accomplish is get them to understand the culture of the brand, make them part of the family, and build those long-lasting relationships with the franchise owners. And you can't do that virtually. So we started to bring back some of these best practices together. The other thing that we have started to do is we have introduced certain programs where the brand new franchisees go and spend a full day with seasoned franchisees in their local markets. We call that the Ambassador Program. And that has been received really, really well. The franchisees get to learn how they make their sales calls, how they are taking intake calls, how they are running operations, how they run their daily management meetings. And that's invaluable, right? So we can train them what our brand standards are, what the operating manuals are supposed to be, but learning from somebody who has done it and has been really successful is really, really important. The other program that we have introduced, we call that the Navigator Program, and this is where we assign a seasoned franchise owner to the new franchisees as business coaches. So they really spend time with them on a weekly basis, helping them understand how to do budgeting, how to manage their P&Ls. Are they doing the basic fundamentals that they are supposed to be focusing on? And they also provide personal coaching. That's really, really important, right? So these changes that we introduced have become really important in building the cultures of our brands, and we'll continue with those things. So in short, I feel that COVID allowed us to revisit our franchisee onboarding processes, automate most of them, but also at the same time create long-lasting impact to franchisee relationships.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. The engagement of the existing franchisees to help bring on new franchisees creates real value for those relationships inside the brand. Those mature franchisees are kind of get a new lease on life, right? Another reason to be excited about the brand, to help train the new folks. So I'm glad you're seeing that too, or using that. Kim, you want to take us first, maybe talk about your onboarding practices, and then, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, JD.
Yeah, I just had a quick question on that. I'm curious if your, older franchisees are just doing that for free for the newer ones.
Yeah, no. The question was using the existing franchisees for the onboarding training. Do they do that for free? And in my experience, no, they don't do that for free. We don't usually write them checks. Something I like to do is give away like convention registration or some other kind of, I used to call it store credit. If I had a store, I don't want to write checks, I want to give it away. Something of that nature. How about for you, Rohit? Same thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, good question. I wouldn't discount royalties.
discount royalties.
No, that's dangerous. That's a slippery slope, right? You never touch that. Kim, thank you.
Okay, yeah, never lower your royalty or give it away for free, right? So I need all of you to have one of these pieces of paper, because I'm going to teach you just a few techniques on maybe how to make your training more fun and more effective. So I have some down here, and there's probably 6 or 7 at a bunch of tables near the front. So you need a pen.
Come on and consolidate it.
Yeah, you need a pen, and you need one of these pieces of paper.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And I'm going to come down to you, I guess. So, what?
Right there,
Right
right.
down
There's some
here?
extras on the edge of the stage.
Okay.
Is it one handout, right, Kim?
Yep.
One page.
And yeah, it's just a one page. For those of you who already have your piece of paper, I want you to think about what are the 3 things that when your new franchisees leave training that you need them to know or be able to do. Like, what are the 3 most important things? Write those down on number 1, 2, and 3. For you, what are the 3 most important takeaways that your new franchisee needs to take away?
Make money, right? You're not looking for answers, because my answer was make money, profitability.
Yeah, profitability, that's a
You
great
know how that
thing.
works. Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully you've written down 1 or 2 things, maybe 3 things. But what I want you to also do now is, do you need them just to know that? Do you need them to understand that? Or do you need them to be able to do that? Like, do they need to have some skill? And so go ahead and circle. Maybe it's even 2. Maybe they need to know it and they need to be able to understand it. So here's the thing with skills. So I have CEOs and people that train other people all the time that ask me, okay, we train them on how to do networking, and they won't do it. They won't do it. Well, are they comfortable doing it? And so what you have to do is just talking. See my little chatter here? This doesn't mean that you know something or have the skill. Okay? In fact, I'm going to prove it to you. I could send you to a lecture hall, and for 12 hours, you could listen to the basics of tennis. When you're done, 12 hours later, is your serve going to be any better? Is your backhand going to be any better? Right? After 12 hours of lecture? On the flip side of that, if we went out on the tennis court, sorry, this is my dog's tennis ball.
Counts, yeah.
I didn't want a big one in my purse because I had a small suitcase. But on the flip side of that, if I took you out to the tennis court and started just whipping balls at you and gave you different exercises of where to like hit it and things to do with it, after 12 hours of that, would you be more skilled? Absolutely. Okay? So, what we did at one point is we took everything that's in our franchise training and we attached it to, do we need them to know this? Do we need them to understand this? Or do we need them to be able to do this? If it was no, then we can lecture, right? But also, can I make it easier? So instead of a phone script, can I make it into 5 easy pictures for them to remember, right? So that they always have it. Understand it. Let me just give you an example of some of the things that I put in the different categories. So I need them to know, like, how to use our CMS. I need them to know our key messages. I need them to know where and how to use our operations manual. I need them to know the philosophy of franchising. But when it comes to understand, I need them to understand marketing. I need them to understand finances. So when we're doing that, it's not just talking. I'm giving them case studies, and they're having to think, and they're having to find things. I'm giving them marketing pieces, and I'm asking, what's wrong with this ad? And so when you think about you want them to understand it, then you need to facilitate it. When it comes to train, skill, or do, then I need them to role play. I need them to do it over and over and over. So when I teach them how to do an elevator pitch, I don't just show it to them once and have them try it. I have them try it with this partner, and then find a new partner, and now find another partner, and now do a speed round, and now do it, with 1 foot. And so after they've done it, and they're comfortable with it, because they've done it 26 times, they're a lot more likely to do it. And then they also have an assignment that night and can come home or come back the next day and tell us about it. So anyway, those are some ideas of how to do that. So if you want to fill in the blanks with me, one thing that you want to think about is, do you give quizzes and have review games? That can make things a lot more fun. You can also make your training fun, make it game-like, and have competitions. Give away prizes. Make things easy to remember. I'm going to give you a real quick example. So I want you all to turn your piece of paper over, and you're all going to do a drawing with me, okay?
Uh-oh.
Just really quick. These are our 5 key messages. So instead of having a whole phone script, can you narrow it down to 5 things? So I want everyone to draw a key on the back of your piece of paper. I always make old-fashioned stuff. It's secret code for kids and millennials. They have no idea what it is. It's like writing in cursive these days. So off of a key, I want you to make 5 slashes. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everybody got that? Is everybody doing this? And then the first one is going to be make a circle. This is going to be a person. And I want you to make a little star body and put around him. Okay? So our first key message is a changed life. So it's talking about testimonials of someone who went through brain training and changed their life. They don't struggle anymore. Our second one is put a dollar sign, is to talk about value. So we talk about the value of coming to our training and talk about that a lot. And then we have, if you make a C with an arrow on it, that stands for that we target the cause. So the C is for cause. So we get to the cause of why someone struggles. And then if you make 7 circles, 3 on the bottom, 4 on the top like this, something else that sets us apart is that we work on all 7 underlying skills that are important to how you learn and perform. Not just one, not just memory, but memory, attention, processing speed. So we target all 7. And then our last one, if you just make a little graph, that's for our results. Okay, so everyone draws the picture with me, and then we practice it, and I throw out objections to them, and they tell me, is it 1, 2, or 3 is the best answer to that. If I'm a reporter and I ask you this question, which key message would you go to? So it's actually having them do it. And then before they can take a bathroom break, they have to take out a clean piece of paper and draw the drawing. Okay.
It's nice. There's a few more blanks on the lower part
You
of
want
that.
the other blanks?
Sure.
Okay, and then we'll stop. So easy to remember, use visual aids and stories, use problem solving, and then that last line is role play, role play, role play.
Practice, practice, practice.
The other thing I would also add is that we don't end our training at the end of training. We do a whole year of first-year coaching that rotates. So, for example, week 1 is always on operations. So each month. Week 2 is always on sales. So it's phone and it's how to answer the phone. Week 3 is the other part of our sales process, which is consultations. And then week 4 is always looking at your financials, looking at your numbers, looking at your KPIs. And then they actually have to graduate out of those calls by showing us some proficiency. So there's a goal. Like once they get to a certain percentage, then they're dismissed from it. So
some standards.
Yeah.
Clearly. And interaction. That's good stuff.
What I take from this is a lot of role playing with a lot of different partners.
Yeah,
I can go home with all that.
you got it.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Okay, Betsy and Rohit, anything else you want to add to the topic before we break down to the roundtables? Anything else you want to share about onboarding post-COVID? I mean, that was our subject.
One thing I think that's really important just as we continue to move forward, and that's the relationship piece. You know, we have franchisees who didn't attend probably a Discovery Day in person or, you know, had modified training in person. So I just noticed that we were feeling a little disconnected from our current and new franchisees. So just being cognizant of that relationship and going out of your way even more to build that relationship. So, you know, obviously our franchise business consultants are back on the road, but they're trying to hit as many stores and spend some extra time, especially with the new franchisees. They probably didn't get the opportunity to establish the relationship in person to begin with, and even from my perspective, you know, I've always been on the road to begin with, but I'm just being very intentional about my travel schedule and making sure I'm going to those stores that I haven't met the franchisee in person. Just I think that relationship piece is very, very important for myself, but also, of course, for our field team as well. So just I think being cognizant of that is good moving forward.
Good advice. Good advice. Rohit, anything you want to add?
I mean, I will echo Betsy's comments on this particular topic. The only other thing that I should have mentioned earlier, as everybody is facing the talent shortages right now, one of the things that we have done is we created recruitment playbooks for our franchisees that basically walk them through not only the recruitment best practices and how to use certain systems the way we want them to follow certain best practices, but also focus on the retention side of it, right? Because it doesn't matter how many people are coming in the door, if your back door is still open, you're going to continue to have that problem. So that's an area of emphasis. We have been spending quite a lot of time working with our franchise owners on setting the culture right, having the right incentives in place, having the right metrics in place, and FPCs work very closely with them in making sure that they are doing things that they should be doing in order to profitably grow their businesses.
Yeah, good stuff. Question, yes, sir.
With the training changes that you guys have made with, you know, COVID and everything that's been going on, have you seen better or worse performance from your new franchisees coming to market? Are you guys monitoring that? And if so, have you guys done anything else to help assist them in performing better?
That's a good question. So what I've seen in clients that I have is, yes, they are monitoring things differently because the training and the environment's different. What I see as sort of a best practice is pick a few mileposts. In some brands, it's like 6 weeks, 12 weeks, you know, so many weeks. At a certain level, they should be between a high or a low. If they're too high, there's something wrong. If they're too low, there's something wrong. So they're looking for manage the exceptions at certain milestones of time or length for performance.
But if you like look 10 years back, or, you know, since you're an older brand, right? If you look 10 years back or 5 years back, are you seeing worse or better performance from your new franchisees?
I would say better performance from because they don't stick around. The bad ones go away and they get consolidated.
All because of the person you brought in.
Yeah, it's really up to the individual, but I'll let the others answer. Question?
I
haven't noticed that yet, but I think that'll be interesting as we go through the next year, essentially where they are, like a year after they opened. I think that'll be the telling point.
Yeah. So I'll just give you one example. For one of our brands, Homewatch Caregivers, one of the metrics that we look at is from the day they open, how quickly can they get their first paying customer, the recurring revenue. And what we have seen is that number has shrunk from on an average 30 days a year ago to about 7 days right now. Wow. So we know that the training that we are doing has been very effective. Yeah. That said, to me, it always comes back to the pro forma budget that has been put in place as part of your training week and measuring progress against that budget and making sure they are hitting those numbers.
Yeah, I guess that's something that's going to be very interesting for corporate America too. I mean, do we go back into the office or we stay at home, right? I mean, that's the same question here, but if it's working with technology and it's reducing our budget, I mean, why would we go backwards?
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of our coaching is probably a lot better, just because doing it over Zoom and not always like on the phone. So I think when you can see someone and you're talking to them and you know what I mean, there's just a lot more interaction than I think we used to call people a lot.
Yeah, it's never as good as in person, of course.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Other question?
Dovetailing with the in-person theme here, do you find yourself, since gauging somebody during Discovery Day based upon the in-person experience, shaking their hand, making sure that you make eye contact, just things that make you feel good. Since we didn't have that with COVID, what type of characteristic or metric did you find replacing that significant metric of that in-person exchange?
Great question. I don't have an answer.
I would say just maybe one thing is just I think our development team was spending more time on the phone with those people because you didn't get so much of that casual conversation or the additional questions. So, I mean, again, not the same obviously as being in person and spending a whole day, but at least having more contact with them than typical for sure. But yeah, that was like the worst part. I hated Discovery Days virtually. They were really tough.
So you lengthened the process and had more of the qualifying?
Yes, yeah. And again, from a casual standpoint, there wasn't like, specific plan that they were necessarily following, but it just seemed to take longer to close those leads. And probably from their perspective too, they're at a disadvantage not being able to come to our office, go to a store, meet with us. So I think it really affected both sides of the party for sure.
Rohit, you get involved in development much?
Not that
Not
much.
so much. Not his role. Kim?
We were actually doing Discovery Days sometimes virtually for maybe like 5 years. We were just doing it on GoToMeeting. We didn't know about Zoom. All of our training had to also change, just our training, brain training with manipulatives and that kind of thing. Luckily, we had piloted it 18 months before COVID, thank God. So we were able to just roll it out because we were kind of ready for July. We were going to roll it out. So we already had 12 centers that had done it, tried it, and had done it for over 6 months, almost 9 months, some of the centers. And so, we were very, very blessed that we could just roll that out quickly.
Yeah, good. That's lucky. Good strategy. Right? Okay, now I think we're going to break into the round tables. So there's 4 of us. How many other facilitators are there here? 1 over here, 1 over there, 1 over there. So that makes 7. So can we consolidate into 7 tables? We don't want anyone to miss out, and we sure don't want people sitting alone. So the 4 of us will take the front 4 tables. And the rest of you, if you join us at one of these 7 round tables, and then we'll do that until, for about half an hour, and then we'll have 5 minutes to kind of wrap it up. Sound good? So we also talked about, related to COVID anyway, the compliance aspects of legal work. One of the guys here is on the legal team at his franchisor, and how to stay away from medical advice and medical data and health data with employees and franchisees, and just the whole slippery slope of how that could be something to be aware of. We talked about, one of the guys here shared that they use OSHA regulations instead of the CDC regulations. I'm not entirely sure. He said OSHA is a little more stable, a little easier to navigate, where the CDC regulations seem to change every other week. So I don't know if that's applicable. Then we got into vaccination cards and how impossible that would ever be to really enforce and monitor, so we kind of blew that out. And then we got into real estate, site selection, logistics, the supply chain, and then labor issues, which I think everyone's struggling with labor issues. So that was kind of the highlights of this table here. Kim, do you mind taking that mic and hitting the rest of them?
Well, I was lucky to be the only franchisor at this table, so this was personalized. But we talked a lot about funding growth, and we have corporate locations, and I'm kind of on the fence about selling the corporate locations and focusing more on franchising. But getting the funds to grow from the corporate locations is definitely a priority here. So we talked about that, and I think that helped me move off one side of that fence. So excellent.
And how we really were actually talking about talking about training and how to scaling what happened last year with COVID, and what it taught us. As bad as it was, we talked about it forced people to do things that it was necessary to do. From different Zoom meetings to different training to even process in place. What else we talked about? Core values and how important they are, how important to follow these core values, not just talk about them. We talked about the culture, right, in the store, and how to, we could monitor these culture by even, through even the bottom line. You could sell, what store is doing better than others. But mainly about you and your training.
Okay, yeah. We had to change up how we do our values. And so what we did is we have 5 values. So we do like a Slack channel that's called Taco Time. And then you give a taco to someone, I'm going to give you a taco of excellence because of, and then once a month we pull out a name out of everyone that was listed, and they get a gift certificate to Fuzzy Tacos. Oh, or do you sell burritos? Sorry, if you hook me up, we'll do that.
We talked about a number of different things, but certainly along the lines of the importance of the relationship, right? So if you're on a Zoom meeting, how important it is to have your video on, and that's a challenge for some franchises. So how do you really enforce that, if you will, and so that you can really improve that relationship since everything is going virtual as far as training during COVID. I think that the other thing that we saw is that there's different styles of learning. So as you are transitioning from a more virtual experience to going back to in-person, that it's really important to have a retrospective and look at what worked during COVID and what didn't work and how you can improve on that in the future, all along those lines of continuous improvement. So if that means going from 3 weeks of virtual training to 2 weeks of virtual training plus 3 days in person, just the constant continuous improvement and the retrospective and what went well, what didn't go well, what can we improve, what was confusing. So those were some of our key takeaways at this table. Anything else? And if that different styles of learning is a requirement and we need to talk to the people the way that they are going to learn the best, then how can we systematize that, right? How can we rinse and repeat so we don't have to have a different style for every single person that we're working with?
Excellent. I know on Zoom, my favorite thing is when someone's background changes and you're like, where are you now? Are you in the office? You're not at your house anymore? Okay, who's our sharer here? You both are. Okay. Love your leadership style.
We talked about a bunch of stuff. 2 big ones were training and ongoing management. In training, we talked about the importance of using franchisees to train other franchisees rather than being the ZOR, because you get a lot more cred when you have the Z do it. Not always, but as a supplement. And then we talked about in-person training, how that's helpful versus Zoom. Like there's loss of data when you do it over Zoom. So important to do in person to the extent possible. And then ongoing management, we talked about KPI tracking, doing that to know when to intervene. And then I didn't know this about Authority Brands, that their management team all owns franchises, but that's really cool and gives a ton of credibility. So that was one other thing that we talked about. And some other stuff as well, but yeah, that's all we got.
Well, we did speak about a lot of different things. We had Kim at our table, so of course we spoke about learning. And I think one of my biggest takeaways was we've always done role plays, not just with our employees at each location, but also with our franchisees. And so adding certain like activities, so like tangible items, or she had mentioned like a beanbag toss of gaining control of conversations, and really just overall helping to build confidence in what they're selling and the business so that they can perform their jobs better. Thank you, Kim. I want to say thanks to my panelists, Betsy, Rohit, and Kim. Can we give them all a hand, please? And thanks for being willing to participate in the roundtables. I know from all the years in conferences, it's always the best part, is getting to connect and share new ideas and meet new people. So anyway, thank you for that. When the survey comes out, please rate this session with all 5 stars or whatever. We want high marks so we come back and do this maybe again next year. Right? With that, anything else? We're good. Thank you.